Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Peters. My questions also are going to be directed mostly to Mr. Vought. Appreciate your service already and your willingness to take this further. I think there's wide bipartisan agreement that during the economic crisis and the health crisis that we're undergoing, that we have to provide the funding necessary to help families that need relief and try and keep businesses operating so that we're able to have a recovery. So even though a lot of us that are spending hawks and debt hawks are concerned about all the debt, we recognize that now is the time, if there ever is a time, now is the time to be borrowing. But I guess the question is, as we think about the next phase, and whether or not there's going to be another rescue package, I don't know. But if there were to be another rescue package, do you or does the administration think it would be important to include in that rescue package some provision for dealing with the structural debt problem, the structural deficit problem that we have? And by that, I'll just note that I've spoken with a number of individuals, including a former Secretary of the Treasury, who said, look, the world markets that buy our debt will understand borrowing during the COVID crisis, but they don't understand an extra $1 trillion a year in excessive borrowing during good times. So is this a time, would it make sense to include some provision, some process to ultimately deal with our structural imbalance?
Senator, thank you for that question. And I think you know that I'm someone that is very concerned about spending and debt deficits. And this president has as well been concerned about that with the budgets that he's put forward. It often goes unnoticed that the budgets that he has put forward have had more spending reforms than any presidents in history, including on the mandatory side, to reforms, welfare reform, drug pricing reform. And so we believe that there is an opportunity in the future to be able to identify some of these things, work with Congress, and to be able to enact them. And we would welcome that. And we would welcome any ideas that Congress has to include in the next package if it is deemed necessary. If we've implemented the first 4 bills and there's a bipartisan consensus to move forward, I think this administration, the president would certainly consider anything that Congress has in mind to be able to think ahead down the road as it pertains to spending and deficits, or to consider some of the reforms that we have put in his budgets.
Each time the president's budget comes out, he identifies places to economize. In many cases, these things make a lot of sense. We also, the final piece of legislation we're presented typically includes a whole list of things we wish weren't there, programs we wish were eliminated. There's always a list of laughable spending priorities that someone has stuffed in there. We all scratch our head and say, why is this? So one of the questions a new senator like myself has, why are these strange, excessive and unnecessary expenditures still being made? And at the same time, why are some important reforms not being included? And I guess I'd ask you, what is wrong with the process? And is there a way that you or the administration can become more involved in the process of creating the final budget, not just your proposal, but a budget, but the final piece of legislation that gets passed? Is there, what are we missing? What is wrong with our process that we can't deal with the excesses? We can't deal with the silliness of some spending programs. We can't get some reforms done. Is it a failure of the administration to interact with Congress? Is it the failure of the Congress to work across party lines? What has made it so difficult for us to finally get a handle on the excesses and on the things that we shouldn't be spending on? And how do we change that? Is there some way we can improve?
A couple ideas, and I think one of the things we've seen that we've tried to do is to get involved earlier and more often. The president has the same view. He dislikes when bills get to his desk that are so big and we haven't had an opportunity or enough of an opportunity to participate in the process. That's one of the reasons why he was so opposed to ever doing an omnibus bill again. And so we have tried to send up letters to work with the Appropriations Committee and other committees much earlier in the process so that there's a more robust view about what we actually find problematic and what we don't. I also wish Congress was doing budgets and passing those. I think that's a very important part of the legislative process that unfortunately has fallen by the wayside, because I think it helps to have a debate in the world's most deliberative bodies about what we can afford, what we can't, and what you find wasteful in addition to what we have found wasteful. And in those dynamics, our budgets can often be an idea generating documents for amendments and debate points. So we're not here to argue that the system is working. In fact, we want to be part of the conversation about how to improve it and make sure that we're not jamming the country at the end of fiscal years. I appreciate many of the hard work that's been done by this committee and various authors on the issue of continuing resolutions. That's a very important legislative initiative, but I think there's a lot of things that we could be working on to improve the process, Senator.
Thank you. I'll let you go here, but I just note that with regards to these relief packages associated with COVID, that Secretary Mnuchin has been able to insert himself in relationships with both the House and the Senate that has helped guide, in some respects, the structure of the package. And I wonder whether it's not possible for OMB and the administration to play a much more active role in the process and the appropriations process, the budget creating process, so that we end up with some of the reforms that the administration is looking for. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back to you.